Maddie and Steve, they set the stage. From classic bouts to the modern age. Every slam, every story, every legacy comes alive with wrestling pedigree. So tune on in, the spotlight's bright. The ring is ready on this podcast night. It's wrestling pedigree.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to a special episode of Wrestling Pedigree. I'm your host, Matty. Along with me, as usual, is the co-host, the last real general manager of MWL, Steve Wilkins. How are you, sir?
I am fantastic, Matty. I'm excited for the show today.
Absolutely. And with us today, we have a very special guest. With us today, we have someone that has been trained by Ricky Dragon Steamboat and trained by Ivan Koloff. Just speaking to him for the past couple of weeks, it's been absolute pleasure. I love him already. This guy is Sonny, the Man Eagle Cain. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are y'all?
I'm good, thank you. And if you haven't heard of Sonny, the Man Eagle Cain, this guy has been an analyst, wrestling analyst for Wrestling Spotlight with Gerald Bentley, and also a wrestling analyst for the Ring Takes with Dan Daly. Those two shows
with Gerald Bentley on Wrestling Spotlight.
Exactly. Those two shows are absolutely good, absolutely awesome, highly recommended. But welcome, Sonny.
Thank you for having me.
Before we jump into your amazing career and your stories that you will tell, I would love your take on what happened last night at Saturday Night Main Event in Washington, D.C. With the main event, John Cena versus Gunther. What's your take on that particular match and the finish?
Honestly, it compares to two matches, in my opinion. It compares to the Dusty Rhodes Ric Flair finish when Dusty Rhodes' legs buckled under him and Flair pinned him with minimum movement, and the fans kind of booed that. And then it compares to when my trainer, primary trainer Ivan Koloff, beat Bruno Sammartino in the Garden before I was born, and they booed the dickens out of that. You could have heard a pin drop in that crowd last night for about 10 seconds. I mean, everybody was just blown out by it, and it was like a boom moment for everybody. They couldn't believe the ending of that. I don't think they minded Gunther winning it as much. I think they minded the surrender of John Cena, the way he did it or went about doing it. It wasn't my match. I couldn't get involved, obviously, and go through the match. I would have had a different ending. I'd gone out fighting harder, I think. I don't think I could have settled for just a simple sleeper hold type hold in the center of the ring, and that's kind of what we got, was the sleeper hold finish.
Well, me obviously on here we love our fancy booking. How would you book it then? How would you do it? What was your finish will be then?
My finish would have been a more classic move, maybe a crossbody off the top, missing that, and a roll up. I think the fans would have been more appreciative of more athleticism versus just putting them to sleep. That's almost like in AEW a few months back when they took a bag out and bagged somebody, literally. And I thought that stuck too. Maybe it was a year ago now that happened in AEW here in the States. But it really goes into feeding off the fans. And hats off to Triple H. I mean, he's got to live with it now. I understand what he was trying to do by making Gunther, the Legend Killer, but I thought we already had a Legend Killer in the business, and I thought that was Shawn Michaels. So are we now not saying Shawn Michaels isn't the Legend Killer anymore after he beat Ric Flair? I mean, do y'all recall that they came out, made a big deal about Shawn being the Legend Killer? So we got two Legend Killers now. That confused me, and I've got some stuff to show here a little later about how long I've been in the business. But it was the worst finish I've ever witnessed, other than Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair. I actually approved of naturally of Ivan beating Bruno Sammartino, but the hush that fell over the crowd in that arena was deafening. I mean, nobody moved for a few minutes after Ivan beat Bruno. Bruno had been champ on top for 5 years at that time.
I do believe it's Randy Orton is the Legend Killer.
Yeah, I mean, we
Yeah.
got 2 or 3 Legend Killers, and why did we need a third? I'm
Yeah,
by that.
I agree with you on that. Well, they highly recommended. I think Steve Glassman on this that the Gunther was the Terminator. Like no one could destroy him, isn't it, Steve?
Right.
Yep.
Uh,
Exactly.
I will probably go with if you're a part of that finish. Do you think John Cena did the right business though, making Gunther look like $1 billion by being that ultimate heel?
Guys, come here, Steve.
Yourself, sir.
I think he did the right thing. I mean, he couldn't do much else by the hold that they chose to use at the end. The sleeper hold in itself to me was fine that they wore him down that way, but they could have done another move or two more that would have stretched it out a hair bit longer. And the match itself ran for a while, so I wasn't upset about that. But just to have him pretty much go to sleep, a man of his stature and caliber now, you're talking about the GOAT of wrestling at this point after Ric Flair. And it's just unbelievable to me that Gunther was able to walk out the building without something happening to him that night. I mean, last night. I mean, people were shaking.
He did have heavy. He had 3 times more security for him to walk to his bus than ever before. So you know that everybody did the right choice. Before we get on to you, Steve, what was your thoughts of last night's main event?
Now, as I said in the video that I had you play Friday night for our John Cena tribute.
Yeah.
You talk about GOATs. You talk about the greatest of all time. Some people will say Hulk Hogan. He brought wrestling to the spotlight in the 80s. Some people will say Ric Flair. He's the franchise player of NWA WCW. 16-time world champion. In his career, nobody had done it better.
Mm-hmm.
Some people say Bret the Hitman Hart. Best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. Stone Cold Steve Austin hit the second boom period in WWE. Made wrestling larger than life. But none of them had quite the impact that John Cena did. Not only for what he did between the ropes, but how he was with the fans. Whether you loved him or hated him, you always had a feeling about him.
Right.
His
acting. He's a terrific actor. I mean, as far as his movies go, I think so.
Oh yeah, but then you also have on top of that his contributions to Make-A-Wish.
Exactly.
His Make-A-Wish, he has granted more Make-A-Wish wishes than anybody in history.
Right.
He's always played ball.
Mm-hmm.
If the brass wanted him to do something, he did it without a second question. I heard an interview of his with Chris Van Vliet that what he would do is he would go and he would talk to Vince before he went out and say, "Hey Vince, what do you want from me tonight?" "Okay, I'll do it," and he would deliver.
Right.
So not only from it from everything, all encompassing. That's why I believe he is the greatest of all time. Now, his match with Gunther last night, it was fantastic. Um, Now, as far as the finish, I, I I do think that he went out the way that he wanted to go out. Um, and you could see it in his face when right before he tapped out. He had that look of relief on his face. Like, okay, this is it. You know, I've had a good 23-year career. I'm done. And that I believe was just him not just letting go of that match, but letting go of his whole career just with that one simple tap. Where, you know, for years his mantra was never give up. And the very last thing that we saw from John Cena in a wrestling match was him giving up.
Giving up.
And I believe that was the death of the John Cena character. Now we get to experience more of John Cena the man.
That's well put. That is spot on, and I cannot wait to talk about this whole show next time we're on. However, I really want to dive into the career of Sonny the Man Eagle Cain. So Sonny, how did you start into professional wrestling? How did you get into Ivan Koloff's wrestling school?
So I started in wrestling as a fan in 1974, and my mom dated Ric Flair for about 4 years, and they were an item, and they were engaged for a time, and they talked about her moving to Charlotte. She met his parents and stuff, and she just couldn't picture herself in a big city like Charlotte. We had just moved from where we are to where I am now. Not you saying that in past tense. She passed away in March, but we moved here from where we were in Raleigh, and Raleigh was big to us at that time. And I first met Ivan through Ric Flair. I was scared to walk up to Ivan because of his ring persona at the time, and I knew he was a shooter or a hard hitter. I didn't know the terminology then the way I've learned it since and going through the training. And Ivan had the opportunity to see me grow up after he realized who we were when I met him again. So what I did was in 1991, they were advertising in between segments. Hold on, fellas, I got to fix this camera. I am right on the line. My apologies.
Nothing could go wrong when it's live.
Is that any better?
That's
that
all
better?
good. That's all good.
Anyway, they would advertise wrestling schools, and they actually advertised 3 wrestling schools at the time. They advertised gentleman Chris Adams out of Texas. They advertised WCW Power Plant World Championship Wrestling, and I didn't know that Ivan Koloff was running the school in Charlotte, but they gave the number on a commercial of Rick Steamboat's gym during the wrestling shows. They gave Steamboat's number to his gym. So I jotted it down, and I got the number to World Championship Wrestling and talked to a man by the name of Virgil. Now, here's the kicker. We didn't have the internet then, and we didn't have instant ways of figuring things out the way we have it now. Virgil and I talked about 3 times over the phone, and I dragged my feet because I didn't feel like he was leveling with me about who he actually was. And I recall telling my mom that. So I got up the nerve and I called Rick Steamboat at his gym in Charlotte, and he was home. and he picked up, or at work there, and he picked up the phone, and we talked about 40 minutes on the first pass. And I told him the schools I was talking to or thinking about going to. Texas was almost out of the question, but I did like Chris Adams' presentation in the ring. And oddly enough, Steve Austin came out of Chris Adams' school, y'all. And I asked Steamboat a question after he remembered who I was a little bit over the phone. I said, "Is Virgil Runnings Dusty Rhodes?" And he went quiet. And he said, "I would have a better chance at going to Ivan's, paying my money, and going through the three or 4 month training program there than I would going to Virgil." Had I known that Virgil was Dusty Rhodes, guys, I would have been to him on the Greyhound bus back in the day with my wallet and a debit card in my pocket. I'm telling you, I quit my job in 1989 because they told me I could not be off on the Sunday that I'd put in for 3 weeks prior to see Sting and Flair. And I came home to watch Sting and Flair.
That's crazy. That is absolutely crazy.
So,
Who was the wrestler? Sorry, who was the wrestlers that you were grow up watching then with professional wrestling in '74?
well, I not only grew up watching them, when Mom got with Flair, we traveled together. And we traveled on the plane with Tully Blanchard. We traveled on the plane with Dusty. We traveled on the plane with Flair, obviously. We traveled on the plane with Steamer from time to time. If you saw Flair back in my day, you saw Steamer. I mean, that's how they ran. Y'all think they run close together now? This ain't nothing compared to how they used to be. So I got into a tight at the gym a little bit, and what unjammed me was he met a cousin of mine, and they had a nice conversation. And then my mom was all over the situation. I came home and told Mom, I said, "This is happening, that's happening." She said, I'm fixing to call him. And I didn't know it, but Mom had kept up with Ric Flair's number for years. They wore an item for years without my knowing it. And in 1983, Flair had gone down to Myrtle Beach. I thought just to go to the beach and put on the show at the WWAY Channel 3 down there, and or WNMB Channel 3 down there, and go about his day, maybe get some sun and go back to Georgia or whatever. He saw Mom during that time. Mom vanished during that time a little bit, and he was seeing Mom during that time. I didn't know this. And I mean, I knew she was seeing somebody, but I didn't know who it was. You can't really hide anything from your children. I mean, your children know when something's different. And so I go to Charlotte, and about a week after I'm there, maybe 2-3 days even, I show up on Steamboat's gym, and I actually have, and I'll show this here. Little show and tell tonight. This is my actual gym membership card from Rick Steamboat's gym.
Holy shit.
I showed up on July 6th, my dad's birthday, 1992. I'd gotten into town about the 1st, and I was staying at Charlotte Fitness Center in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's not there anymore. I think it became a furniture store or something like that later on. And what connected me to that was the couple that were together there had been students and graduated from Mount Olive College, which is now UMO here in Mount Olive. So that kind of bonded us by a little bit, that we were from the same little area. And Ivan said, was I going to Steamboat's gym? I said, yes, I'm planning to go to Steamboat's gym. And he said, "Well, when?" I said, "I'll go after our show, sir, on the 4th." So we went out to a biker bar off of Independence Boulevard that had to have been 500 plus bikers there. I mean, but here a biker, there a biker, everywhere a biker, and their ladies and different things. And we walked out with an up and coming wrestler who'd been there about a month or two longer than me, named Sean Powers, who ended up getting a tag title with Ivan for a little bit. I don't think he did anything else in the business after that, but he had a college degree, and I think he became a manager in a successful business after that. I kept up with him a little bit, but we walked out, and that was my first taste of actually being on the aisle, going to the ring on the aisle. We're moving now, and fans were out of this world. People were bungee jumping off of fire truck ladders and all kinds of things. Kids today say, oh, "What's a bungee jump?" A bungee jump's craziest jump that you could ever see, where people take a rubber band basically and hook themselves into it and jump. Not this boy, but people. I got a little more going on up here than that, but anyway, that thing could break. But after that, I arrived on Steamboat's doorstep. I still hadn't unpacked my car. Unbeknown to me, Mama had already gotten with him over the phone, Steamboat, and he was aware of my coming. And I said, he told me to turn and go back. Well, oddly enough, that's the same thing that Ric Flair had told me at an early age at a dinner table one night as he, Mama, and I were eating dinner, not to do the business. So I've heard, at that point, I'd heard from two legends in the game not to do the business. And I thought to myself, well, there's got to be something to it. They've done it. And I said, Steamboat, I can't turn back. He said, why not? I said, half of what I own is in my car. I said, I'm here. Wrestling practice is tomorrow at Indian Trails. And the internet gets this wrong about me some. I didn't actually live in Indian Trails. AI is not the most reliable source of information.
Mhm.
I
No.
lived in Charlotte, and I lived at Charlotte Fitness for about 2 weeks before I somewhat wore my welcome out. And I went to Steamboat. I said, well, if I don't find a place soon, I'm going to be homeless. He said, well, where did I work? And I told him. And he said, well, right across from where I worked were some apartments. And he thought if I went down there, I can land me an apartment. And that's what I did. I went down there and I got an apartment. And there I was, a young man in a grown man's sport. And that's what I tell my dad, who loves wrestling, doesn't want to hear much about any of it, but he is interested in this podcast and what goes on with me here. He thinks it's the coolest thing, I think, that I've connected to England twice. But so periodically he'll say, how's the England connection going? And I'll get to talk about it. But
it's unbelievable the story of
So,
how you started.
so those were my early connections as to how I got to running. And Steamboat looked just like he looked in the picture behind me back then. I wasn't intimidated by him in the least in person. I was about his size. And he said, how long was I there? I said 3 months or 4 until I finished school. And luckily, I made it out in 3. Steamboat talked to Ivan and said he thought I'd proven myself to the point that I could graduate and be good to go. And this is my not cutting you off, man. This is what I would show promoters before I got my demo tape. This is an actual. Can we put that up? This is an actual certification signed to me from Ivan. And this is the license to the whole thing, if you will. as to what would get me in the door. But once in the door to these other leagues, I would branch out and go to their schools. Each league had a school, and they wanted to see how well you bumped away from the show before they decided to promote you within the league. So it wasn't a total waste of time. Excuse me. But I did ask myself finally one day, why was I going to all these schools when I had the best training in the world by Steamboat and Ivan? I said, I'm good. I'm going to school. So at that point, I quit going to schools. Once you went to their school in the independent league, the league got the notion that they didn't have to pay you top dollar because they were training you. Well, that sucked. I mean, when did the training end? Is why I came home and asked myself. I mean, good Lord, I'd made it through. I was toughest nails school with steamer, and here I am still here, and I need more training. So I just went to work getting matches for myself, and eventually I would take this certification. This is probably worth a little bit of money in my hand today with Ivan's signature in the school. And I would take this demo tape. I eventually compiled everything into a demo tape of about 8 or 9 things, and me at an awards banquet being recognized as up-and-coming wrestler of the year. And I would go to the promoter, say Steve was the promoter. I'd say, Mr. Atkins, I'd say, I'm Sonny Cain. Sonny Cain's my real name. I wrestle under this. At the time, it was Sonny the Body One Chaos Cain. I used that for about 2 years. Then I branched off into Sonny Total Chaos Cain. The paper here in town named me that. And then it finally became Sonny Chaos Cain, which eventually led into Sonny the Man Eagle Cain. Now notice, I'm telling a story here. I'm keeping Sonny Cain, but I'm developing my character at the same time. So the fan, if you see me in one outfit and you see me in another, you say, I saw him before. Well, Roddy Piper did something similar to that too. He kept Roddy Piper and went on with it, and it just went from there. And I'd say, here's Ivan's number, here's my number, Mr. Atkins. I said, feel free to call Ivan. I said, but if you think I have a shot at working a match in your league, call me. And ordinarily, 98% of the time, well, 90% of the time, they wouldn't even have to call nobody. They'd say, be at so-and-so's gym at 5 in the afternoon. Show starts at 8. We'll book it. We'll take this tape home and watch it, and we'll book it. Back then, everyone had a VCR. Today, kids don't know what that is. But that's how old I am. I'll be 57 in March. But
what would you be used more? Would it be your certificate, or would it be like your certificate of like you're a pro wrestler, or would it be the tapes?
Probably tit for tat. The fact that I had legitimacy to the point that I was who I said I was, and I'd make it as professionally clear as I could at the time, being a young fella, that this is not all my work, sir. This is just compiled here together, various segments of what I can do. And that's the way it came about. And some guys would watch it and they'd say it's the worst thing they'd ever seen. Other guys would watch it and say, well, I'll do anything for ring time. I said, well, that's the point of why I compiled this tape this way, to show you all that's shy of putting up the ring and taking it down. I'm your man. And I should have done a little bit of ring setting up, I suppose, along the way to have gotten in more with the promoters back in the day. But my thought was, I'm there to wrestle. I'm not there to be a roadie. I don't want to be labeled a roadie. I don't want to run with the roadies. I'm the wrestler. Right. So, and that's the life.
I have a good friend of mine that I grew up with, who trained under Killer Kowalski.
Oh, that's cool.
And once he got through the training, Kowalski was able to help him get jobs close by. He ended up working with Chaotic Wrestling in Massachusetts.
That's cool.
With you being trained by Ricky and Ivan, was there the same type of thing there where they were able to help you get matches?
The only match that Ivan ever got me, and I respectfully called Ivan uncle, even though he wasn't my uncle. That bear in mind, in the early '90s, a lot of the guys called him uncle in reference to he and Nikita Koloff. The only match Ivan ever helped me with really was my main debut match here in Mount Olive, North Carolina, where we put together 4 matches, 5 matches. I've got a tape of that too. And my hopeful goal is to get these matches online and give them the proper airtime that I think that they deserve on YouTube and whatnot. But the only match that I ever got help with was a benefit show that I did here in town. And Ivan said this, that, and the other. And oddly enough, true story, I got a phone call, and young man talked to me on the phone, and he said, "This is Matt."
Not me.
Not you. And I said, "Matt who?" He said, "Matt Hardy." He
Shut
said,
up.
"We've heard about your show, Sonny. Jeff and I would like to come in and at least work some kind of angle to the show. Could I book them?" I said, "Well, I'll be honest." I said, "The booking portion of this show is going through Ivan and Charlotte." I said, "If he greenlights you," I said, "you're welcome to come." And I should have fought harder for them, because in 1994, we met up again, and my mom got in the middle of that too. But being the loving mom that she was, and she pulled back to the side right quick and told him to take care of me, because I was always helping out Jeff. They beat the shit out of Jeff Hardy when he was younger.
Oh wow.
Every match he was in. I never understood it, other than the fact that he had it all before he got big. I mean, he had the rock star deal going on before he grew into it. That's why I'm promoting and pushing so hard a young wrestler from NXT that's now getting all kinds of attention, Siobhan Evans. And I'm saying he's going to be the next Sting in WWE.
Wow.
You can't go by, that's my prediction. You can't go by a guy's size when they're 23 and know what they're going to do when they're 34. But if he doesn't get hurt with his high flying skill techniques to the point that he becomes unable to compete any longer, he's got the potential, in my opinion, to be another Sting with the right grooming and the right guidance. He's that much of a breakout wrestler, and I hope to meet him one day. But in '94, Jeff, Matt, and I got together, and we wrestled periodically across North Carolina. I've wrestled in Georgia. I've gone to Texas. I've gone to Tennessee. My stay in Texas was just with Flair. I met the Von Erichs down there. That was kind of a political move. In Tennessee, it was something very similar. Flair landed in Tennessee and had a bout with Jared Alder. I do remember that at Mid-South, and I remember going into Mid-South Coliseum behind Flair, and they wanted to know who I was, and they put a microphone in front of me, and Flair allowed me to talk a little bit into the mic and tell him who I was at the time. And then he said that was kind of enough of that, and we had to go and get him ready for the show. I was Flair's gopher at the time. And I worked with him about 4 years. I don't know if he would remember me today or not. There's a picture of us back of me from 1989 at the Dorton Arena in Raleigh, North Carolina, and that was the first time I'd seen him since the late 70s. Man's had open heart surgery. He's been married 5 times. He's been around the world. He would probably have to think back to mama at this point in time in his dog. And I'm told he doesn't forget anybody. So, maybe not.
That's such a tremendous. Um, what while you were talking about and Jeff, I want your quick take on how do you feel their career has been since you saw them until now.
Well, I was at the first tables, ladders and chairs match. It was held here in North Carolina, actually, at a high school. And the match was set that I was going to run out and help Jeff, like always. Matt just finally started including me because he knew if he didn't, I'd be coming anyway. So I invite myself to it. And I tell him it's on the house. With that said, I think they are second only to the Rock and Roll Express in popularity and what they've been able to accomplish. The Rock and Roll Express has not had the triple tag team deal going that Matt and Jeff have had, but for their day, they had the same popularity going. And they didn't need two and three title belts around their waist to say who they were. You just knew. And I knew early on that Jeff and Matt were going to make it. I humbly apologized to both of them for not booking them on the show, and they said they understood my hands were tied, and we got over that. And I saw them both again in 2016. Where were we?
Was that 2016 WrestleMania that they debuted?
Around that time, they were doing independence, and we were somewhere like it may have been down in Fayetteville. But I went to their show and couldn't get in because I didn't have a ticket. I know where it was. It was near Smithfield at a civic center type place. And I went to the after party after the show. And Jeff and I hung out a few minutes there. And Matt and I hung out. And I've long since, in changing my computer over, I had to lose the pictures from that. But we had pictures made that night. And someone called me a fan and not a wrestler, and that irritated me. And I had to explain to this person who's a very predominant person. I said, I am a fan of the business. I said, I dearly respect some of my coworkers, and that's something I've tried to explain to my dad. They are just exceptional Class A type people. They've done just like me. They've worked for $25 a show in table sales. They've worked for table sales. I've done some of that in the past. Not merchandise, but my autograph and pictures to make up the difference of the money. And even the night Jeff and I became tag champions together at a show from a guy who was a promoter in Greensboro, Greg Price, ICWA or something like that. He didn't have any money to pay us. So Jeff and I went out and sold autographs and pictures that night, Jeff Hardy and I. And that's how we got through the night. And Jeff was tired at the end. I offered to go out to eat and hang out with him after it. He said, maybe next time. But Jeff liked my character so much that he wanted to purchase my character. And I said, Jeff, I've done it so long. Now I just can't see anybody else doing it. I said, I've done it 30 years. Or at that time, 20 plus years. And I said, it's my little thing. And anyway, do you say and do what you feel is right at the time.
Absolutely, absolutely. Where do So we're in '94. Is I think '94, '95 was the end of the territories. It was a lot because Vince Jr. was buying a lot of stuff, a lot of Georgia and everywhere else. Canadian, I think it's Canadian Stampede. Where did you end up during that period in '94 to '97?
The toilet. I the leagues got balled up to to quote a scene out of the Elvis movie, but the leagues got balled up so bad, and not only the leagues, guys. I'm talking about he bought the rings
Oh wow!
from the leagues, and you couldn't work in a lot of places. But in '94, I found myself in the Triangle Wrestling Federation out of Raleigh, North Carolina, where I won and held until the league disbanded 2 years later. Went out undefeated, I did a regional title. And these are things I've tried to explain to my dad along the way. And he's a smart man. He just can't wrap his mind around the business end of this and what it's done. And he said, "Well, where were you in all this?" I said, I was getting into semi-main and main events in the show, in the cards, and being put and start to be put on posters, and that's where the money was. I said that's why I turned down the WWF because they made me an offer where they wanted to put a mask on me and not let me use Sonny Cain. And I said that wasn't going to fly because I couldn't storytell with that. Here I am, 25, saying no to the WWF. But
That's great.
it it's true. I was building that reputation. And Wade and Jennings has sung about it, outlaw crap. And a lot of stuff attaches itself onto you along the way throughout your career. I heard this, I heard that. Uh, People don't laugh today at me as hard as they used to, and if they do, I'm just numb to them. 3 years I've been enjoying these wrestling podcasts and sharing my stories with people, and it seems to be with the connection of you guys and the other two groups I was hooked on, just a continuation of something. And that's
Mm.
what I've told my podcast buddies. Once you start working the business, fellas, you'll never quit being in it. Somebody will always come to you saying, "Can I be on your show?"
Yeah, we get that. We get that a lot.
That's the domino effect. And if you think you get it a lot now, wait until 3 years from now when you and I, when we all are working together right on, and people want to jump on the show still, and there ain't but so many shows in the year. That's kind of what Gerald is starting to realize. I mean, Gerald and I 2 years ago were sitting there in his studio, he on his end and me on mine here in my studio, going, "We need some guests." Well, now we got probably, if I had to guess, I'd say 15 or 20 head that would love to be on the show on a regular basis. We got other guests that won't be on there too. So there ain't so many dates in the year that you can book somebody. So supply and demand's nice.
Um, what I You told me the story of this before, but I really want to. Was this the gimmick that WWF gave you, where you were a green? Is it green spot?
The green dot.
The green dot. Please tell me this story because I love this story. This is my favorite story at the moment.
So the road manager at the time, road agent, y'all can look this up, was my friend Ricky Steamboat. He had risen to being the WWF road agent, talent scout person in his time period. Uh, I'm told up until a year or two ago, he was still doing that. He came to me with an offer. He said, WWF wants you. They like you. Blah, blah, blah. He said they want you to go to Florida and be available for them when they call. Well, gentlemen, I had starred in Charlotte. Had it not been for the two girlfriends I had at that time, I would have never made it through training camp.
Two. I love
Two
that.
at that time. And I liked one over the other. But it goes that way sometimes too. These were my sinister days. And anyway, they fed me and they took care of me. But Steamboat went on to say, with his tale of tales, I'd have to be part time on call, and I couldn't work a job, and I couldn't wrestle on Independence. I said, well, what's in it for me? He said, the chance to make $250. I said, well, 2 years ago, Steamer, that might have, and I called him Steamer. I said, that might have appealed to me because I was younger and dumber back then. I said, but today, I can't maintain an apartment off of $250, what, 2-3 times a month, and a maybe. I said, am I ever going to be able to tell the story of me winning? He said, no. I said, am I ever going to be able to take the mask off and show my face? He said, no. I said, am I ever going to get to be Sonny Cain, Sonny the Green Dot King? He said, no. Back then we didn't have the computer, so I was trying to storytell. And I said, well, I got one word for you. He said, what? And I sounded like The Rock probably to him by today's comparison. I said, no. I said, we're not doing that. He said, I've got the contract for it in the car. Did I want to sign that? I said, what part of the word no don't you hear me telling you? I said, I'm not starving again. I said, Florida's too far away from my family base. I said, it's too much strain on the family for me to go there. I'm listening to the whole thing. And I said, he said, why did I want to be a face so bad? I said, why do you like being a face? He said, because people recognize him and so on. I said, tell the truth. I said, that's where the money's at. I said, can I use karate moves? He said, did I know karate? I said, yes, I do. I said, I have a blue belt in Taekwondo street fighting. I thought you had something in Mom. I said, well, that's what I have. I said, I didn't go to school half done. I went to school with something. I just didn't tell Ivan about it. And boy, when Ivan found out from my cousin who went up to meet him, he was angry. He said, a ringer in my school. I said, well, I'm not up here to play. I'm up here to do this for a living. So I wanted to know what I was up against before coming. I said, obviously, you all can make money at it eventually. And he said, yeah. And it just went from there. And that's how things spin sometimes. CCWA, Carolina Championship Wrestling Alliance, was on WWA Y Channel 3 here. Similarities to Channel 3s. Mm. And they were showing us weekly, kind of like the Mid-Atlantic NWA stuff. And I was getting known in Smithfield from going to Smithfield and the loyal following that we had. We had about, I had to guess, probably 500 fans a night show up. And wrestling has always sold, and it will continue to sell because it is the last blue-collar job where the common man can climb the ladder and make it all the way to the top.
It is absolutely.
And that's what I portrayed, was a common man wrestler trying to make it to the top. And that was my charismatic appeal to the fan base. And I guess maybe some of my loyal fans, people that have kept up with me all these years, still seeing now is that I'm still trying to climb that ladder. So
Oh, it's. I mean, I doing my research on you and listen to your stories. I just love them. I think your story is unbelievable. Um, before we end part one of this incredible interview with you,
there's
Sonny,
one more story, one more thing I'd like to share.
I was about to say I want one more story before we go, and I know it's going to be a doozy.
It will be. I don't know what this magazine would be worth now because it's not in the best condition. It's really been in the ringer, but I've held on to it.
You should show
Uh,
Steve because Steve would know.
Steve, what do you think?
Ooh. Oh, I don't know.
Can it
Ooh.
open?
Yeah, does it open?
It does.
Oh, that's more than.
It first thing I want to point out, right there in black and white,
NWA.
the year 1975.
Oh.
I was 7 years old.
I, I don't know, Steve. That could be a fair bit more.
It's my
That
first
could be.
fan-based magazine that I held on to all these years, and you got Andy Hardy, and talks about Woody Hayes. That's Johnny Valentine,
Just
I
a nice
think,
guy.
and Sir Oliver Humperdinck, my guy
Oh,
Wahoo McDaniels.
of course.
We'll get into that next time.
Oh, yes.
And let's see, who we got here. We got a couple of up and coming people. We got that guy there. You may have seen or heard of.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
We got Paul Jones,
Mm. Yep.
and we have a pullout of Ric Flair when Mom and I first knew him.
Wow.
Wow.
And the reason people in Mount Olive, my hometown, have had such a hard time believing Mom dated Ric Flair, and you got the original Minnesota Wrecking Crew,
Oh.
not the one that came later, the original. The reason people, to some extent, in my hometown have had a hard time picture my mom dating Ric Flair was because we called Flair by his first name, Richard.
Hmm.
We covered for him, literally. And it's funny, there's a guy, he's going to die when he hears me share this, but one day there was a group meeting at our house, a group gathering. Wasn't a meeting, but it was a gathering per se. And this service guy was there, and one of the more predominant guys who hung out and stayed around at the time. And Mama was on the phone. I remember it like it was yesterday. And she called him Richard a time or two. Said Richard into the phone a time or two. No, no, I don't want to go or something like that. And I said, "Are you talking to my uncle Richard?" And she paused and said, "Uh-uh." I said, "Who are you talking to?" She wouldn't tell me. And the predominant sergeant ears rose, sort of figuratively speaking, and he said, "D, who are you talking to?" Mom later told him, away from everybody. And guy became a well-liked, popular cop here in town. He's just retired a few years ago from the police department here in town. And he was actually the chief of the police department when he retired.
Wow.
So he probably remembers at least a portion of that story.
Yeah.
And occasionally Flair would come down here and hang out with Mom and I. And we went everywhere together. Went to Hawaii for 3 months over summer vacation one year. And, again, I don't know how much he would remember of this because he has had open heart surgery and been married 5 times. But the reason I think he keeps playing Ric Flair is because he's been Flair his entire life. He doesn't. He said this in an interview. He said, "I don't know how to be someone other than Ric Flair." And I thought, how ironic. I've been studying the man for quite a while, so I get it.
That's crazy. That's such a crazy story. Obviously, I'm cannot wait for next week for part 2 of this interview, where we will go through Sonny Cain's from 97 to 2002 and just go through everything, every story. And I feel we've had 1 hour of amazing preview and awesome stories already. And it literally is a great taster for what to expect next week. I want to say it's an absolute freaking honor, Sonny, to have you on this show.
Thank you.
Me, I was, I won't, I will speak for Steve, but Steve can honestly say itself. We love the 80s and 90s wrestling, and we love the stories. And just to have you on the show and have you on next week and have you on other shows in the future, it's going to be a freaking honor just to hear them. And
look forward to working with y'all.
And I cannot wait for next week. And if it's anything like this episode, I literally cannot wait. So for next week, we'll be obviously talking to Sonny, the Man Eagle Cain again. Me and myself, Steve. Sonny will be here this time, probably next weekend. And Sonny, where can people find you? Where can people find you on the social web?
So social web, people can find me at Sonny Cain, the Man Eagle Cain on Instagram. My activity there is picked up a little bit with people coming on board. They can find me at Sonny Cain at the Man Eagle Cain 1995 on X. They can find me at Sonny Cain at the Man Eagle on Facebook. And what I did on Facebook was not calling my friends fans by no means, but a lot of my old friends have been supportive of me over the years, and they're always asking, what I'm up to. So I got a good many of them on my page, and I update them all during the week. This is what I'm doing on this show and the other show, and so on and so forth. So it's an intimate fan page, kind of.
I actually know what you mean there, Sonny. It's a really good page to go on, so I highly recommend it. Also with Gerald Bentley, so highly recommend it. With Wrestling Spotlight. So I am looking forward. That's all right. That's all right. Anything happens when it's live. We've been me and Steve's gone through Richard with this. Steve, where can people find you? I could tell you enjoyed this episode because you were so quiet and enjoying it.
Absolutely.
You love the stories. You love the stories.
I am a sucker for old wrestling stories. Like I've sat backstage with Shawn Michaels and Kevin Nash and listened to their stories. I've listened to stories from the British Bulldog Davey Boy Smith. I listened to stories from anybody who will tell me stories, and there's nothing better to me than hearing about, you know, legendary stories from the business. Um, Now, as far as where you can find me, you can find me on Facebook as Steve Akins. You can find me on X under pedigree underscore Steve. I got it right, Maddie. Um, you can find me on Instagram. Good luck with that because I'm on there, but I don't know my name. Or
Wonder.
if you really want to, you can send me a Snapchat under Akins is my hero.
Really? You got that as your username?
Yes.
By God. Uh, there's so much I could do with that. You can find Wrestling Pedigree on our Facebook, which we are honored to be followed by Sonny the Man Eagle Cain. Um, we are on YouTube and Instagram on Wrestling Pedigree 92. We are really interactive at the moment on TikTok on Wrestling Pedigree. And you can find me at X of W freaking A, where I finally got my handle back and just talking great wrestling shit. So, once again, thank you, Sonny the Man Eagle King, for joining us this weekend, and cannot wait for part 2 of this episode next weekend. And from myself and Steve, have a great week. Enjoy professional wrestling. Don't be a dick. And just enjoy it.